Welcome. Just chat with Matt. Hello, I'm Matt. You're chatting with me. It is, oh my God. Just having a bit of an issue with my computer this morning. It's Chat with Matt. It is the 29th of July here in New Zealand. It is 2020 still. We're here to answer any questions, comments, or concerns you might have. I'm just trying to get my computer to fire up so that I can see if anyone wrote in anything ahead of time. Hello Mary, hello Eve. I'm here to answer questions. I'm here to talk about whatever you might be interested in. Yeah, computer's not happy for whatever reason. Hey Leslie, what would you like to know? What's going on for you guys? It's been interesting energy here. This is better. This is better computer. Been interesting energy here. Still a lot of stuff shifting around. Still a lot of fears arising, but I've got quite a bit of movement happening as well. I've got a few good outcomes. I've taken a few brave steps forward and they've paid off. That's always exciting. And things seem to be flowing a little better. And at the same time, I'm also, quite busy answering questions and helping people who are still quite stuck in it. So I know times are shifting and I know it's very intense out there. And I also know that it's an awesome opportunity right now, that it really, really is an awesome opportunity. The structures that have kept us contained are really getting loose, and that's exciting. That is exciting because change is more easy in this environment, fundamentally, although we need to deal with the fact that fear and stress and anxiety is as high as ever, and that can create, obviously, limitation and, what's that word that starts with R? Not restriction, not resentment, resistance. Resistance to actually allowing change to happen, right? Because when we contract in fear, we tighten up and we don't take the steps that are available to us. So it's a double-edged sword. The fact that the structures are falling down is perpetuating fear, but if we're willing to step past that fear, it is actually easier now to break out of the matrix, right? Break out of the limitations and actually step into it. Yeah, that is, Mary said she spent the whole day on a call with Apple. I get it. Technology, right? And those structures, many of them are getting a bit loosey-goosey at the moment. So, and it can be incredibly frustrating dealing with resistance that's showing up in the electronic world. I guess the point of that little rave is to inspire you guys all to maintain a positive attitude to the discomfort that you're feeling. Even though the fears and the anxieties might be heightened, it is also an indication that there is more opportunities to bust through this stuff. Quite often it's, the saying, it's darkest before the dawn. It seems like we're going backwards right before we have a big step forward. Hey, Sister Fiona, how are you going? Interested in how you went with your initiation that I believe you were heading out onto a week or two ago. Good, here I am live, so that's great. Found that, and I wanted to find Matthew, because I'm not in the group, that's why. Bright Light Beings group. I wanted to find the notification just in case someone did write in something ahead of time, which you are all welcome to do. Here it is. Is this on? It certainly is. Here we go. So Fiona did write something in 2 minutes ago. The dark agenda seems to be progressing very rapidly now. We are light beings making much progress, as at times it seems like one step forward, then 2 steps backwards. Oh, awesome. So it's pretty much what I'm talking about, Fiona, without having read your question. So yes, it does seem like the dark agenda is progressing, but it's sort of progressing in an unfounded way. It's progressing, in my opinion, in a very erratic and desperate way. They're having to forward their agenda on super speed because they're basically losing. So they're throwing everything they have at it in a desperate attempt to try and destabilize and regain a version of control through fear. But in my opinion, based on the energetic fundamentals, they're not winning, right? They're not winning. They're not getting their claws in. Mainstream media is doing their best because mainstream media is owned by these dark agenda, right? To keep projecting the fact that darkness is winning, to keep population in contraction, right? In fear, in not disappointment wasn't the word I'm looking for, but that's the one, right? That'll do. So Mary said there are many narratives that are contradicting each other. Exactly. And that's exactly the benefit of right now, is there's so many narratives contradicting each other that there is nothing that you should believe right now. And it's not important for you to believe the right narrative. You don't need to believe any narrative. Let go of trying to pick the winner. Right? There's so many people out there very, very desperately trying to pick the winner, scrolling through all of the narratives, all of the conspiracy theories, all of the various opportunities, trying to work out which one is correct. And I'm here to tell you none of them are. None of them are. There's bits of truth in many, and there's lots of manipulation in all. Even causes that I feel quite strongly about supporting, I've looked at their posts or their campaigns lately, and I can just see that they're manipulating it to try and get their agenda across the line. It's like they're all playing the same game. It's like they can't, it seems that very few are willing to just stand in the truth, their truth, as it is, without needing to fudge the numbers or manipulate or heighten or enhance, right? Why can't they just trust that their message carries enough power if they were to leave it pure and to stop trying to play the same game that everyone else is playing, right? Which is trying to grab everyone's attention by making, their message more standoutish. So then they go and Photoshop their images or use images that aren't factual. And it's kind of like that. Just people like me and many of you are getting stronger and stronger bullshit meters, and we're not willing to sacrifice our real values of authenticity and integrity, even when we do basically fundamentally believe in the message. When people are using manipulation to try and win the masses over, it turns me right off, and I'm sure it turns many others off who have a lot of energetic power to put behind such agendas, right? Agenda in a positive term, agenda, right? Intention, if it felt more in alignment. So at the moment, for me, I'm aware of a lot of stuff. So I haven't shut down all of my inputs, but I'm very, very, I won't use the term skeptical, but I'm very, very aware of what is driving everything. And I'm also noticing how much truth is in anything. And I'm not prepared to allow my mind to get caught up in the idea that I have to pick the winner here, that I have to work out what's the right thing to believe. All I need to believe is what I feel in my heart. And that changes from moment to moment. And all I need to believe is in what actions I'm choosing to take in the moment. And I don't need to try and predict what's going to happen in order to get my ducks in a row so I stay safe. I'm going to be able to stay safe by trusting my intuition, which is going to tell me what to do in the moment. Now, it's really hard because my mind, just like your mind, wants to plan things ahead, wants to think that it knows what's going to go. It wants to be able to predict and then hash out all of these, plans, 1 month plan, 5 month plan, whatever, 5-year plan. That's what the mind loves to do, and it's been, reinforced and retrained in us during this lifetime, especially, but in many other lifetimes as well, that it's our mind that's going to keep us safe, and that we need to, have a plan in order to be successful, and we need to be monitoring all the problems to avoid them, and we need to understand stuff. I just put a post on about understanding, and that was about particularly having other people understand us, but in general, wanting to understand the world, wanting to understand what problems are going on right now, kind of backfires on you, because if you're trying to understand what's going on right now so that you think you can keep yourself safe from it, you are just going to wind yourself into stress, because what's happening right now is very hard to understand, because as you're pointing out, there's so much contradiction and there's so much manipulation happening that it's very hard to get a mental understanding of what's happening. And I'd point out to you that perhaps it's not appropriate that you even try, and that you don't need to have a mental understanding of what's happening right now, and that you can trust yourself on a deeper level. Yes, awesome. Let me read that properly, Leslie. Not that it matters, but it's possible there are just a small number of these agenda power people that try to stir things up on all sides. Oh, most definitely. Most definitely, Leslie. There's like 8 families ruling this planet, literally. And they're on both sides. They're feeding both sides. Their whole agenda, their whole way of ruling the planet is to keep us divided and fighting each other. And then they're winning on both sides. They're selling bullets to both sides, right? In more ways than one. So that's the game. That's the game. It is only a very small number of people who have over 50% of the wealth of this planet and have ultimate control and are quite dark. And they've been in power for quite some time, quite some time. Thousands of years, really, but, 300-400 years more efficiently. Like, they started organising themselves back around 1750 something, right, when they formed the Illuminati and started infiltrating various organisations. They infiltrated the Masons, and not all Masons are quote unquote bad, right? Masonry in general is a very honourable occult, but there's certain factions of Masonry that's been infiltrated by the Illuminati, and they use dark magic to build their power. So yes, it is only a very small number that are basically behind it all. You don't need to mention their names. You basically know. A couple of them start with R. A couple of that's it. Hey, Sister M. Hey, Sister Jane. Hi, Matt. Lots of spiritual sources suggest using this time to plan the future one wants. How can one do that when it is so uncertain? Because you don't plan it, Jane, you vision it, and there's a big difference. So planning suggests that you're going to work out how you're going to get there. Plan is like a map. Like, I'm going from here to here to here to here. I've got to do this, then I've got to do this, then I've got to do this, then I've got to do this, and then I'll get the reward. So that doesn't work at the moment because it's so uncertain. But what does work is using this time to align with your outcome that you desire. So go straight to the destination and energetically align with that destination. So you can do that through imagination and meditation and vision practices, or you can do it through journaling, you could do it through art, you can do it through a lot of ways where you basically choose to align yourself with the energy that you wish to really experience more of in the future. I like to do a journaling practice where I write a page, or more than a page, I write a journal entry in a future date. So sometimes it's a 6-month date, sometimes it's a 1-year date, sometimes it's even a 5-year date. I've done it. So I write, so today's the 29th of July. I could write 29th of July, 2025. And then I start writing about what my day looks like. Right, what my day looks like. And it's not just all airy-fairy. I write about what sort of problems I have in the future, which are much better problems than I have today. Right? I write as if it's real, and I try and be as descriptive as possible, not like I'm telling a story, but like I'm keeping it like a real thing, and I'm living it in my mind that this is what's going on today. I've just finished my meditation, and I'm writing about what I've got to do today, what's been going on in the last week, what I'm struggling to overcome now, and what my issues are, and what's going on. And in that way, I make my potential future much more real to me. And what's important about that is not getting too caught up in the fact there's a yellow Lamborghini parked in the garage, or any specific shit like that, but it's to get more in touch with the vibration of the freedom and the empowerment and the purpose that I'm currently living in the future, right? Now trying to manage my team as they, look after my social media or whatever, right? Or now managing the team as we're setting up to do a big in-person event where there's 1,000 people coming and it's a 3-day event and we're doing this and we're doing that and all the rest of it, right? It's exciting, but also challenging, because I recognize that that's what my future is going to look like. That's what I'm choosing my future to look like. It's going to be purposeful. I'm not just going to be lying in a hammock sipping pina fucking coladas. I don't really like pina coladas. It'd be much more like a margarita. But that's not my future, right? And I'm not just looking at, right, I'm going to have $1 million in the bank or $10 million in the bank, right? It's the vibration. It's, go back to a great Australian film, The Castle. It's the vibe of the thing, right? He was talking about the Constitution. It's actually very relevant for today. Talking about this guy the airport tried to repossess it or buy back his home to extend the runway, right? And he went to court and fought it with this shit tin pot solicitor at first. Who held up the Constitution and just said it's the vibe of the thing. A man's home is his castle, right? But then a proper barrister got on board who was very au fait in constitutional law and won the case, right? It's a story about the common man rising. I like it, right? And it's full of humour. And it's from the 90s. Anyway, it's the vibe of the thing. So when we get in the vibe of the thing of our future, rather than getting into the planning of the future, then it can become much more, Fiona gets it. It was shot in Melbourne, right? Much more real for us. So this is a great time to be focused on your future and not so much focused on trying to overcome the problems that are in your immediate space, right? If we take because when we focus on problems, what we focus on, we always feed, right? Because where our energy is flowing, where our attention goes, our energy flows. And when the energy flows, you build, you strengthen. And so we really want to be putting our energy into our envisaged future where we're all living in a much more collaborative way, where we're all living in a much more harmonious community atmosphere, and quote unquote politics doesn't really exist. We're now sort of governing ourselves through very natural council-like democratic processes, right? Where the people are represented by the people, and it's not corporations lobbying politicians to maintain their agendas. And we think we have some sort of fucking choice in this matter. It doesn't matter if we vote for bad or if we vote for worse, we still get screwed, right? That's what we've got at the moment. So it's time for all of that to change. So vision it being different, talk about it being different, feel it being different, meditate on it being different, but don't get too caught up in how we're going to make it happen, because we don't fucking know, and we don't need to know. We're going to know what steps to take when the steps arise. We're going to feel into what the best option for voting in this next opportunity is. We've got elections here in September in New Zealand. I know over in America they got them in November. What's the best option? Do we keep voting for red or blue, or do we go, fuck this, I'm voting for some independent? It's time to put a protest up. It's time to stop thinking that I'm wasting my vote, right? That's very common, this idea that, if you vote for anything other than the two major parties, you're wasting your vote. Of course the two major parties keep telling you that, right? And all of the media is behind that, because the two major parties are both sponsored by the same few people at the top, right? They don't care who's in government. They really don't, because they've got their ways. As long as they're dividing the population, and the population is fighting on these fundamentals of red versus blue, man versus woman, black versus white, Christian versus whatever, Protestant versus Catholic, it doesn't matter. They can divide us up. As long as we're fighting amongst ourselves on those sorts of divisions, they're winning. They're winning. So it's time to, really get out of the narrative and into what's important to you, and be courageous enough to stand on your own values, courageous enough to really stand up for what you feel in your heart is the right thing to do. Now, despite what everyone else is telling you, that's a wasted vote, you should do this, or you should do this, let it go. It's time to really reclaim your stuff. And trust we'll all make mistakes in doing that. We'll all feel I should do this and then maybe later judge it, or in hindsight, or maybe that wasn't the best thing to do. It doesn't matter. As long as we start being sovereign and start making our own minds up and taking action based on what we feel, we are going to come out in front. That's what we need to do. Stephanie Day. I found recently that sometimes it's more important I learn to trust that in a team than whether it's right or not. Exactly. The exercise is to develop a better relationship with that inner team. Exactly. So what I like to do, and I love that, and I practice the same thing, and I realized that the worst thing you can do for your intuition is start trying to test it. No, there's no third party, Mary. Get out of party, the idea that you should be voting for any party, and find an independent. That's the point. So, yes, because exactly, the third party is just riding the tail. So all the parties, I look at the Green Party, and I'm basically a conservationist. I'm very much in favour of nature and Mother Earth and all the rest of it. So Green Party, basically politics is what would, appeal to me. But then I look at how the Green Party conducts itself, and it's like, well, that's effed up, right? they're just politicians trying a different angle, half of them. And those that are legitimate people are basically caught up in the whole political agenda. So it's time that we basically take our energy out of all parties. And the whole party, the idea of a party is ridiculous anyway. I want to vote for someone who's going to vote with their heart in the moment based on what they feel is the right thing to do in any particular situation, not based on what party policies are, not based on what party lines are, not based on agreements that are made between parties to, support each other or do this or do that, right? And politics has no place in governing a country, right? Politics doesn't belong in it. I don't know how we allowed politics, right, to enter into how we make decisions about how we run a country, because it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But anyway, so Stephanie's point's really good. So the worst thing that you can do for your intuition is to judge it based on hindsight. What I have chosen to do instead is to trust implicitly that any decision that I make is for my highest and best good. It doesn't matter if my ego doesn't like the outcome down the line, right? If I find it uncomfortable what I've chosen, I choose to accept that discomfort is what I need right now. The more that I do that, the more that I find confidence in myself, the more that I find that I have a better outcome. When I believe my outcome is always serving me, guess what? It always does. I know it seems like we're cheating, that if we think that what we believe is always for our best, and what we believe is our reality, but it's the truth. So when you believe that whatever you choose, it's going to serve you, then it does. As long as you're strong enough to not go back in hindsight and start beating yourself up thinking you made the wrong decision. It's been an incredibly valuable lesson for me to just get out of this idea. Before I was so shit scared about making a decision, I'd try and feel into the intuitive thing to do, and I'd get an idea, and then I'd want to test it with a pendulum, and then I'd want to fucking pull cards, and I'd want to try and make sure I was going to get it right. And there is no right, but if you trust that whatever you choose benefits you, then it does. And that's all any of us really want. We kind of egoically want to be able to predict and have the outcome that our ego thinks is most comfortable. But really, what do you want? Do you want to just stay comfortable, or do you want to grow into the most expansive, purposeful being that you can be on the planet, the most expansive expression of light you can be here? Because I want that. I want to be the most expansive expression of light on this planet. And I know to do so, I need to have some uncomfortable experiences along the way, because those uncomfortable experiences are basically the limitation that's still in my field coming out. And so if I'm willing to make decisions that lead to discomfort, that basically gives me the opportunity to step past what is keeping me small and disempowered. Because the more that I can have a disappointing outcome for my ego and choose to maintain an empowered attitude towards it, the more invincible I become, the stronger I become, the more authentically confident I become. And that's it. That's the path. That's ascension. A lot of people like to think that once they're ascended, like there's some sort of completion to the fucking process, which there isn't, of course, that their life is like peaches and cream. It's always just love, joy, and mung beans. And it's just not ever going to be that way. Yes, I can see that, Lucille. Lucille, is that how you read that? I'm dyslexic. That's interesting. Oh, yeah. Yes, I think that's Lucille. I can see that. There is no fear, only feedback. Yeah. Well, there is fear, but it's the internal fear that we're getting it wrong. But there's no fear doesn't really exist out there, right? Yeah. Anyway, Sister Stephanie, it's the same politics in organizations and workplaces, and there is often codependencies. Exactly. Politics is an egoic game. No failure. Exactly, Fiona. That makes much more sense. There's no failure, only feedback. Exactly. And so we shouldn't fear that experience of getting feedback, of having an experience that our ego didn't want, because it's how we grow. It's how we grow. If you are not, you're welcome, Lucille. This life on this planet, it's not a test that we're getting right and someone's scoring us. Oh yes, look, that was a good move. It's not fucking Survivor. Brie was bored for something to watch, so she's watching reruns of Survivor on Netflix last night, and it's kind of like that whole game, right? The game that they play is the politics on there is just like, well, that's actually really happening. That's how we're governing our countries. Lies and manipulations to try and get to be the last survivor, right? That's not life, right? That's not reality. They call it reality TV, but that's not the ultimate reality of what we're living here on this planet. It's not a competition. There's no 500,000 or $1 million at the end if you're the sole survivor. There is no sole survivor. We're a unified energy, divided up, having an experience amongst ourselves to grow internally. Because there is only internally, because we're all God having this experience, a division of God, an aspect of God, an individuation of God. We believe we're only a part of God, but really we're the whole, because it's a holographic reality where we contain the whole as an individuation. But anyway, let's not get too screwed up in that idea. Thank you, calendar. The point is to get out of this fear around failure, to get out of this fear around making a mistake, so that you can really just act from your heart in the moment with confidence. And as you do so, as you exert your will in the moment, that's living. Right? Because most people aren't prepared to live just yet. They're still too worried about getting it wrong and we understand why. We've been freaking persecuted for the last 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years for showing up as beings of light onto a planet that's been very, very strongly ruled with an iron fist by beings of darkness. But they're losing that ability, right? They're trying to put it on, right? They're, still sending in the National Guard or doing whatever to try and maintain this fear. But ultimately, you and I are able to stand up as beings of light now and express ourselves as light beings, and we're not getting dobbed in as witches and burned at the stake anymore. So it's our time, friends. It's our time to start to overcome those old indoctrinations and those old fears, and to really stand in our power now. And it doesn't need to be big and extravagant. It doesn't need to be standing on a soapbox preaching. Just in your daily life, being the light as you walk around, right? Being authentic to yourself, not kowtowing down to the pressures that society's trying to keep you under control, right? With this fear of being judged by others, right? They're actively promoting that people should dob each other in for not, quote unquote, following the rules that they're making up on the fly just to keep us divided. Opt out of that. Doesn't matter. If someone chooses to do something, great. If someone doesn't choose to do it, great. Just learn to love each other, right? Because ultimately, that's how we're going to win. It's when we just hold love for each other. It doesn't matter if they're reacting from fear. We don't need to call them out on it. It's quite often not a loving thing to do to call someone out when they're stuck in fear, especially if they're not confident enough to deal with that. They're just going to get more fearful and more controllable. So we just love them. We just hold them in a loving space. If they're reacting from fear and needing to do all of the fear-based things, then love them. If you see others who are being what you might call irresponsible and flouting the whole thing just because they want to push back, then love them. You don't have to do either. There's no rights and wrongs about what you do. You do what you feel in your heart, and you let others do the same, even if they can't yet, right? Even if they're stuck in their programs, you don't need to actively bust them out. We don't need to awaken people by shaking them awake, because I don't know about you, but the only times I've been shaken awake, I've really resented it. And I haven't woken up in a great mood having been shaken awake. It's much more sensible that we just express ourselves as an inspiration to those who are still stuck in their fear-based reactions, and give them an opportunity, an example to witness someone who is not living from fear. You don't need to ram it down their throat. You just be visible in doing it. Mahatma Gandhi, right? Be the change you want to see. You don't need to force others to change. You can help them when they ask you, but ultimately, to start with, you just be it and allow yourself to be visible as it. That's how we awaken people, because they will catch it. It is very, very catchy. Freedom. It's a very enticing vibration. And when others can sniff it on you, they will want some of it. When you are free of the narratives, when you are free of the programming, when you are free of the fear, others will want to know what you're doing, right? So be willing. Your job is to be willing to free yourself from the fear, and then to be seen as free from the fear. And you don't need to be overt in that. You don't need to preach it. You just be it. And the ones who are ready to awaken will come to you. And sometimes I won't even ask you. Sometimes I'll just watch you and they will catch it. It's contagious, and they will start acting. They will start taking a leaf out of your book, right? For some reason, my computer's just had a little hissy. It's because I unplugged. It's been very, very happy running on my cord, and now I've only got one cord in this room, so I've plugged it into my phone and I'm trying to go back to the Wi-Fi on my computer, and it's not liking it. Anyway. I've missed quite a bit of this. Something making life a lot easier could be love it, but don't preach it. Be it, but don't preach it. Exactly, Fiona. And observe them from a place of love. Exactly. Sentence making my life a lot easier could be good, could be bad. My mind can be satisfied and I feel my heart louder in that moment. Exactly, Em. It's just about letting it be what it be. Hey, Kelly, how are you? And that's exactly right, Barbara. It's not a test. It's a journey of expansion. No. Cancel. Okay, I think I got it all. Okay, my friends. Hey, Sister Georgie, I'm just about done. So that was it. That was Chat with Matt. It's 9:36. I got my Q&A call coming up for the Bright Light Client Attraction process in 25 minutes. I forgot to send the email out last night, my friends, but I sent it for those of you on the Bright Light Client Attraction process, which is an awesome opportunity for those of you who wish to be more visible in the world as a facilitator, which is not necessarily not necessarily an energy worker or energy practitioner. It doesn't mean you have a healing practice to be a facilitator. It just means you walk in the world as someone who facilitates change. Could be any sort of service-based provider, or maybe not any sort of service at all just yet, just a desire to be it. But anyway, that's an awesome opportunity. If you're into it and you don't know about it, then reach out and I'll tell you something. Okay, my friends, much love. I will speak to you again, same time, same place next week. What else? Next week, we have a full moon happening, and I should just look what time. Calendar. The full moon is on. I know it's 4 a.m. in the morning, my time. I am going to do it live. Yes, so it's going to be the Tuesday morning. I will send out some emails and I will post into this group. So there'll be my full moon extended light language session happening next week. So in like 6 days time, minus a few hours, it'll be 4 a.m. in the morning, New Zealand time. Later that same morning at 6 a.m., so just 2 hours later, I have an interview with Carey on the Soul Talk, something talk for the soul. What is that? Anyway, something talk for the soul. Carey Telesummit. It's going to be interesting. I'm talking about empowered sleep or optimal sleep and how we can choose that in an empowered way. So that's coming up next week, and then we'll have a chat with Matt the day after. Any questions, any comments, any concerns, reach out to me. We're here for you here in this group or via email or anything else. Much love. Bye for now. Bye-bye.